All right. This is our official November meeting here, and we're focused this week, supposed to be focused this week on analysis. And I've been kind of monitoring some people here, and a lot of them are getting close to the end of analysis. And the biggest thing I want to say about analysis is this: don't get stuck here. You could live here for the rest of your life in analysis, but the object is to get enough under your belt that you can move forward. Really, you're just trying to gather enough information so when you get to the creation phase, you can have a true understanding of who your avatar is, making sure that they are from a profitable market. That's a big deal. Uh, you know, when people base their avatar on thought, it's not a good idea. You need to base it on a market segment that's actually profitable. And the two big things there for identifying a profitable market segment is the size of the market and the market's ability and willingness to pay for the product or service that you're offering. So big differentiation there, not just having the money to pay, not having just the ability, but also the willingness. That's a big one. If you could have a market that has enough money to buy your product, but if they don't want your product, that's not what I'm talking about. So some of the ways that you can do that is really easy. If your market is aware, if they're in the aware category, then they're going to be searching. So real easy to go do a little keyword research inside of Google and figure out how many people are running particular searches. That's a really good way to validate a market very quickly. If your market is not aware, then you might have to go a little outside the box here. You might have to go on other means. And sometimes it's actually means that are not online. Sometimes you can't find the stuff online. But there's some cases where, there may be third-party data, there might be, historical data on things. There might be published data from different industries that will verify market sizes. I don't know how they figure it out, but they apparently know, especially within like the medical and the financial fields, stuff like that. There's a lot of data on those markets that isn't necessarily online. So you could potentially verify the size of your market through third-party data. Wherever you get it, it's fine. It's just make sure that you at least verify that there is a true market there and it's big enough to support your sales efforts. And then also, once you find that market and you kind of figure out who those people are, then you can go into demographics and figure out if they have the ability to pay. You might look at things like household income, types of jobs, salaries, positions, what they consider themselves. A lot of that stuff you can get out of Facebook Insights. Facebook has a lot of data on people, even those that don't search. So if your market isn't found in Google, the Google demographics wouldn't do you much good unless they're searching. If they're searching, you can easily access the data for the demographics for the people that are searching for those terms. But if not, then you just move over to Facebook and all of the audiences. Pretty much Facebook gives you a pretty solid slice of a market representation across the board. Now, other things to keep in mind: if your market is millennials, then Facebook may not be a good solution. You might have to dig a little deeper into some of the other demographics from those sites that the millennials are eating up, like Snapchat and Instagram. They are much more prevalent in those arenas than they are on Facebook. So the older generation, they love Facebook. Facebook is like the new newspaper for them. There's a generation ahead of us that really still don't like the internet. They're they're fizzling out, slowly but surely. But it's like they used to read the newspaper, and now that newspaper has been replaced by Facebook, believe it or not. People get their news, and get this, Facebook is not a news station, but everybody's talking, and that's where they're getting their information. So that's something to keep in mind. It's a very, very large audience. And most of us have an audience inside there, so it's a good place to look. So that's something you want to keep in mind. The other thing that's really important about the analysis process is the competitor research, and keeping in mind that your competitors are not just the people that are doing exactly what you're doing. It's the people that are basically providing a solution for the same problem that you're solving. And I say that generically as though anything that we're selling as a product or a service, generally it's providing a solution to some sort of problem. If somebody wants to make more money, their problem is they don't have enough money. So this product is going to help them make more money. If they have back pain, that's the problem. So if you're providing a solution that helps that, then that's a match. But you've got to keep in mind, like specifically, for the back pain, it's not just chiropractors that have a solution for back pain. It's all kinds of other solutions are available, and those are your competitors if you're a chiropractor. So keep that in mind. It's anyone that provides a solution to the same problem that you provide a solution for. So, like for instance, back to the chiropractor for a second, just so I can give you a practical example. The chiropractor solves the problem of back pain for the most part. They do other things as well, but that's their main thing. They provide a solution for back pain. Now, other people that provide a solution for back pain that would be considered competitors could be drugs. There's pain relievers that have a solution for back pain. There's massage therapists. There's acupuncturists. There's inversion tables. There's a number of different products on the market that provide back support, car pads, chair pads, all kinds of stuff. So what you want to do is you want to find out who those competitors are, figure out the top 5, the ones that are really competing for the most market share in your market. And the whole reason behind the competitor analysis, for me, it used to just be about keyword research, because I was solely focused on SEO for so long, for so many years. And that's all we cared about. We just were looking at the keyword research to do SEO. But in marketing, it goes much deeper. Yes, you are still looking for the keyword research to see what keywords are important to each one of these competitors, to see where they're getting their traffic. That's one thing. But there's a lot more to it than that. One of the reasons, the big reasons that you want to do your competitor analysis, is you want to find out what promise they're making to the market. That's really important. If you don't know what the competitors are promising to the market, then you don't know how to effectively approach the competitors, because you don't know what they've heard. Really important that you understand what they're hearing and how they're feeling about it. And that's what we get out of analysis. That's where, understanding the timeline, understanding the empathy grid, that's what all those lessons are for. And you really need to get your head wrapped around that. So when we're over in the competitor analysis, we're looking for their messaging as well. This is this is huge, figuring out how they're addressing that market. Not only what the market is to them, but how they're speaking to it. What's the promise that they're making to the market? What's the unique mechanism that they're using to deliver the promise? What does their pricing look like? What are their guarantees? What problems are they addressing in their marketing? How are they doing that? What kind of lead magnets are they using? What kind of giveaways? What kind of, if they're using tripwires, which a tripwire is a low-cost purchase to get them in and change that relationship between a prospect and a customer. Once you've changed that relationship, it's much easier to resell more products and services to a customer that has already made a purchase from you than a prospect that is not made a purchase from you yet. Once that relationship changes, things become a lot easier. So that's one of the things you want to look at is, how are they doing that? How are they addressing that market? And also, what are the concerns of the market? And, how are they addressing those? Are they doing a good job of it? And don't always assume that your competitors are doing things right. That can be very dangerous. I know I work with commercial clients a lot, and I look at a lot of this competitor analysis. Teams are bringing this stuff back to me so I can look at it and help guide them with creating their marketing campaigns. And I got to tell you, I see a lot of it that is just absolute junk. It's garbage. To me, it's like there is no competition in this market. If you get this right, you will dominate the space. Because a lot of people have said this, including Frank Kern, is all you have to do is look at what's going on existing, take existing marketing, and just improve upon it. And if all other things are equal, you will do better. So as long as you make sure that you're driving the same traffic that they're driving, like if they're running ads, if you're running ads in the same space at the same volume and you've got a better marketing message, you're going to win. There's no other way around it. If you have a better call to action, if you've got a better lead magnet, if you've got a better promise, all of that stuff, better guarantees. So just take what is working and improve upon it. That's one of the biggest reasons that we do the competitor analysis, is to be able to do that. We cannot improve upon something if we don't understand it. So it's just getting our head wrapped around that. So the other thing too, and this has come up with the whole creation of the ACT process. When I was working with that, our initial dream team, and they were trying to pull out of my head how I do this stuff, it was really difficult because I do things on a linear fashion. I'm looking at everything all together and being able to just pull what I need wherever I need it to be able to do this stuff on the fly. You will, believe it or not, you will be able to do that once you understand the pieces. Going through the ACT program for the first time, you are a beginner. You're learning a lot of different pieces. And sometimes when we do that, we don't really see the vision and the goal on the other side. We get so caught up in this one thing that we're doing that we don't see how they all fit together, but they do. And the more you learn about each different process, the more that when you come into a real life situation and let's say you get a friend in front of you and they say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this business. And what do you think? You'll be able to learn how to ask a few questions about that. And a lot of it intuitively, you'll be able to help them with a couple of different, searches, online searches. You'll be able to just, do this stuff on the fly like I've been doing for many years. And it was just a difficult process for me to unravel what all the pieces are that I have access to. And that's what we've done. The ACT program pretty much labels them out. It puts a label on each one. So, for instance, I was working with my team last week, and I've got them working on a commercial project for our company. And, they're going through ACT by the book, piece by piece by piece. But then they sit down and they give me the pieces that they've already got, and I'm like putting things in way ahead, and they're like, how are you doing that? I'm like, when you understand all the pieces, that is the way you do it. You don't necessarily have to do things in order after you figure it out. Now, right now, for you guys to learn ACT, I am having you go through piece by piece and learn it one piece at a time, because it layers on top of each other. But once you get all those layers and you've got that working foundation, you won't even have to think about it to do it. It'll just come naturally to you. It's like, if you think about, as human beings, for us to just stand up and walk and take a step, we're firing a bunch of different muscles that we no longer even have to think about, because if we did, we wouldn't be able to think about that many processes, and we wouldn't even be able to take a step forward. It's that layering in of things that puts things on an unconscious, competent level that we're actually able to do them. So that's the way it is. When you learn to walk, it's really hard at first. But then all of a sudden you get it, you get a step, and then you get 2 steps, and then, and you're really focused and you're really concentrating on getting this right. But then after you start walking, you just take it for granted. When was the last time we thought about how do we walk? We don't, we just do it. And that's the same thing here. So, and we can walk in different ways now without even having to think about it. We can see somebody, hey, they're skipping, that looks cool, I can do that too. Just change up the way you do it, because you've got access to all this stuff. Think about it. The first time you tried to skip, it was odd, it was a little different. But then once you did it for 5 minutes, you'll never forget it. Any of us, we all learned that. We knew how to walk, but we didn't know how to skip. We saw it, we tried it, it was odd, it was funky, and it took us a few minutes to get it right. It's the same thing with ACT. It's every one of these little things that we're layering in. Once you get them, you no longer even have to think about them. It just becomes natural. So that's the really shiny side of the coin that I wanted to share with you guys. And keep that in mind, that it's hard right now. Yes, I get that, but it will become easier, and it's a skill that you will have for the rest of your life, just like walking. Think how you would be right now if you didn't have that determination and that desire to get up and walk and take a step. What has that enabled you to do to this point in your life? Think about if you didn't have that. If you thought, this isn't worth it. Think about where you'd be. It'd be pretty dismal. It's the same thing when you're talking about business as an outcome. This stuff is like walking. You've got to figure out how to walk, and it's painful for the first few steps. So that said, another reason why you guys need to really stick with this, and I know, when you get kind of halfway or 3/4 of the way through analysis, you get familiar with it. It starts feeling familiar and easy, and you don't want to move to that next step. You don't want to go from walking to skipping because it's odd, and just get comfortable with it. I heard somebody, I forget who had said this and where I heard it, but they said, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that's how you move forward. And, like I said, once you get this stuff, you'll never look back. You'll have a skill set that will be amazing for the rest of your life. Not only will you be able to help yourself, you'll be able to help friends, family members, and other businesses. And there's a lot of money in that. This is a great business. Being able to help business owners advance their business is a great feeling, and it's a great business. And it's not going away. There's new businesses emerging every day, and they all need the same help. They all need what we have. They all need this skill set. And very few, if any, have it. So they're all either willing to learn it or buy it. So as providers, I know some of you guys have been resellers of mine for a very long time. And I'm telling you, there's not a better thing to put in your tool belt than learning the basic concepts around business and marketing. It will make you invaluable to your customers. Once they get to know you and trust you, and they see that you really know what you're doing and you're able to help them, they will never let go of you. That's just the way it's always been. People don't like to change. When they get a good provider, when they get a good business service provider, they'll never leave you. They'll never go elsewhere unless you lose touch with them. If you let them slide off the radar, you don't take care of them, that's the way you can lose them. But anyway, if you guys have questions, I know there's just a couple of you on the call here. We're going into the holiday season, and I do expect things to be light this time of year, because they always are. We start eating turkey and all kinds of other things that aren't so good for us. So go ahead, Glenn.
I do have to expand a little bit on your skipping analysis is timely for me, because that is kind of how I feel. And my daughter's 3.5 now, and she's been working on skipping for probably 3 weeks now.
Yeah.
And it's awkward. She's fallen a few times. She thinks she has it, but she's a little off. And I feel that same way going through this analysis process. It's like, oh, I got it. And it's like, no, you're just a little bit off. So I like your analogy, and I can relate to it at the moment, because that's kind of how I feel.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true with everything. And I've been through it myself. I've been through it, and same thing. I'll get to where, I've been doing business for X amount of years, and I think, I got this. I'm a mastermind business owner, and then I'll go do something stupid and fall down again.
Yep, and it seems like it's the process we go through just to learn.
Yeah.
And I'm busy I've pretty much finished my analysis side, but I went back because I was having trouble with my big idea.
Okay.
So I went back to my campaign analysis and went back to my notes on what makes us different from our competitors.
Uh-huh.
And I was struggling with that when I went through here and putting this together, is what makes us different. But it's, as you were talking, I was rereading some of this, and it was starting to make sense.
Yeah.
So I'm beginning to see what makes us different. You're not just a name in an agency. You're treated like family, which is Rustin's always big about family.
Uh-huh.
And the idea of we are ahead of the curve. We don't just do SEO. We want to make sure you can convert traffic, and kind of bringing in the coaching side, and bringing in it almost touches on ACT, even though it's more, I'm trying to put this together for the marketing SEO side.
Yeah.
And so just as you were talking, it started actually coming together for me. So I felt like I got a couple of beats of my skip about right.
Well, that's awesome. For the big idea too, since you brought that up, the big idea a lot of times will come out of the analysis. Like if you read stuff from, I forget his name, well, anyway, the guy that they portrayed Mad Men after. Trying to think what his name is. It'll come to me in a minute. But anyway.
Is it David Ogilvy?
Yeah, there you go, David Ogilvy. If you read up on him, or you follow him, he was really, I don't know if he was the creator of the big idea, but he really used that. He used that in a very big way. And one of the things that he said that the big idea always comes out of the market. It never comes out of your head. It always comes out of the market. So for us, like in the ACT program, where it might come out of that market is it's going to come out of this analysis portion. It's going to come out of how does your customer feel? What are they feeling? What are they wanting? So things that might really pull that out might be the timeline. If you create a big idea based around the timeline, which deals with the desired outcome of your customer, that's a really good place to look for a big idea, is in that timeline process. Another place to look for a big idea is off of the empathy grid, off of what they're seeing, hearing, feeling in, from the market. What are they actually experiencing? Those are really good places to look for your big idea. And for Mary Sue that's on here too, same thing with you. It's what's the timeline? That's a great place to look for the big idea, and also on their feelings, which comes from the empathy grid. What are they seeing, hearing, feeling, all of that stuff.
For sure.
So
that's kind of where I was taking it, was from my ideal client and looking at the empathy, because one of my competitor analysis was talking about trust and fear.
Okay.
And that was mainly the only thing they really spoke of, was they understood the fear of working with people outside of your company. And they understood the fear, and they didn't even do the work, they just manage it. So I was like, well, that's interesting. So his whole thing was, you can trust us because we've been in your shoes. We know what you're going through.
Yeah, I know what you're up against.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a great point. There's nothing better than being able to walk a mile in their shoes.
Right. And that's also part of your empathy grid, because you're dealing with the feeling and the fear of that.
Yeah.
And the tension, and kind of what are they doing about it is, number one, they're looking for something, or at least they're watching the promo or whatever.
Yeah.
So, and I was catching on to some of that yesterday with some other ones also I was watching, that was dealing a lot with the fear issue and the unknown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The other thing about developing a big idea, sometimes a big idea doesn't just hit you. Sometimes it needs to be developed. And I was talking about this earlier on the Dominator call, was, like sometimes I'll need visuals to really help me. And I'll put like either sticky notes up on the wall or a whiteboard, and I'll start. I really like sticky notes though, because I can move them around. They're a lot more editable. When you start writing on a whiteboard and you want to edit it, you got to erase the board and start over pretty much. But with sticky notes, you can kind of move them around. And with big ideas, it's a brainstorming process to really come up with a great big idea. It's not just a flip one out on the table and land it and go with it. A lot of times it's a brainstorming process. So if you put out like 2 or 3 big top level ideas and just start brainstorming out, sometimes that's easier to see it on a whiteboard. I know I've done this with a lot of different people, and when we're sitting there face to face, everybody's stuck. And what I'll do is I'll go up to the whiteboard and I'll either write out something on the whiteboard or a sticky note and stick it up there. And then I'll say, who else has an idea? And then we get 2 or 3 ideas up on the board, and then all of a sudden it's like a landslide. It's like somebody says something related to this one and then that one, and then combining them. And all of a sudden now we're flowing, where before we were just at we're at a Mexican standoff. We're all just sitting there looking at each other. So doing that with someone else is really beneficial. Sometimes, doing it with somebody from your market can be really helpful, because they'll throw stuff out you won't have thought of. And it comes right from the market too. I know a lot of big companies, they will do this, and they do market studies where they'll actually pay people to come in, and sometimes they'll give them some sort of an experience of the product or a description of the product, and then they get all of their collective feedback. And in a lot of cases, they'll do it in a written form first, where you write out your answers, but then after the written form, they'll put you around a big round conference table and they'll turn it into a group discussion. And, they're videotaping this, they're recording it so they can, get all of that data later. But all those ideas, sometimes they will find absolute gold out of actually talking to people in the marketplace, talking to their ideal customers. If you go to an ad agency, for the most part, they're all going to do that, and it's expensive. So, that's kind of the drawback of it. But if like, let's say you've been in business and you've got a few customers that you've worked with, and, you're on really good relationship with them, and, you can actually ask them that stuff, you might be able to do it that way. But make sure, if you're going to do that, make sure you're doing it with customers that you want more of and not the ones you want less of. Because you really don't care about their views. You only care about the view of your ideal customer. So that's another way to do that. But big ideas are sometimes really difficult to come up with, especially if you're just sitting by yourself. If you're sitting by yourself, you can have that same phenomenon going on of the Mexican standoff. It's just you looking in the mirror. So the easiest way, again, whether you're by yourself or you're in a group, the easiest way is just to write something down and then write something else down. And then all of a sudden the ideas will start flowing. But like I said earlier, they all generally will come out of the market research. If you're operating outside of that and you're just like throwing stuff to the wall, chances of you coming up with a really good one are not very good. It's pretty remote chance that you'll actually come up with something worthwhile doing that way.
John, something that occurs to me, for my customers coming in long haul, they're worth a significant amount of money, but they don't have much of a commitment to me, because they can start with a bottle that is a small price, and if they get results, they go on and they stay with us. But when you talk about somebody that is offering a service, like marketing or web work or something like that, generally what you're doing is you're asking people for a significant commitment up front. And as somebody that has been stung over and over and over again, to me, to say I was in your shoes and I can do it, followed by then you can commit and sign a contract with me, and it's going to be $10,000, and I never get any results from it. I have a tendency to say, prove it, right? Before. So my feeling is, I think probably, so people, when they talk about tripwire, is usually, I think, something that's almost insignificant. But honestly, in listening to Gwen talk, what I'm thinking is, if you can have somebody buy something from you and you get results, right? So the first thing is what do you want to do? Let's try that for whatever amount of money, and we will prove to you that we can get you results. Then the next step is you get more results and you get more results. Somebody is going to, at the end, when you've got something like that, you're absolutely right. You can't lose those people. Okay?
Yeah.
I'm still trying to find a team, and I am coming closer, okay, that there are people that I simply will not leave because they are absolutely awesome. And, but it takes a long time to get to that point. And I really think that if you can prove people prove that to people right up front, okay, then you begin to build a core of people that you absolutely are not going to lose in any way whatsoever, because people need it. There is no bigger need
Yeah.
in a situation right now of people that are working online to build an absolutely awesome team to support them.
Yeah, absolutely. So what Mary Sue was basically talking about there was it's a very different thing talking to somebody that's just bought a tripwire or is just starting to work with you. What I was more referring to, talking to somebody that's your ideal client is somebody that you've actually worked with for some time, and they are, you guys are a perfect fit, and it's a good match. You would get much different data if you were just talking to people that either had not used your product or just starting to use your product. A lot of times when people start in on something, they don't really have the reality of it yet. So it's more important to get them after the fact, and you'll get more accurate data, I think, that way.
But they might have been using somebody else's product that's similar multiple times, and they're looking for you, right? And all you have to do is prove to them that they're in the right place.
Yeah, I know that's been very true for me as well, because I started off in the web hosting business, and a lot of people had a lot of trouble. Hosting was, back 25 years ago, hosting was a new concept, and everybody was terrified of it because they really thought that, this is going to make or break my business. And actually that thought was kind of true, because if you had a bad host and they went down, your email was out, your communication was down. It was like, they really saw it as the end of the world. It's like today, if, I'm just going to do a contrast here of the way people and business operates today versus the way it was 20 years ago. 20 years ago, I'm not kidding you, people were like obsessed with the whole email thing. They were checking it constantly to see if an email was coming through, because they didn't get the 5,000 emails they get today. So if there was like 30 seconds that email was down, and they were sitting there wondering if someone was going to be sending them an email in that 30-second time frame, they absolutely freaked out, and they just went nuts. And when you have people that are in that stage and you can give them something that means a lot to them, like reliability, I got a lot of my web hosting customers that way, because they'd experienced a web host that was not reliable. A lot of people were doing it out of their homes, and the home services, the connections just were completely unreliable. They were down, more than they were up in some cases. So, that was a big thing, understanding what was important to them. So, yeah. I'm not sure where I started with that or where I was headed with it, but I totally get that that desire of what's important to them, and where how they will once you solve that for them, they're with you forever.
Isn't that key, John, to make them understand that you are the solution, right?
Yeah. And back to Gwen's point of, that's what she's been grappling with, of what makes us different. I had a lot of trouble with that myself. I mean, I knew, I just didn't know how to express it. And what I would tell someone that had never dealt with me before, when they asked, what makes you better? What makes you unique? I hated that question, because, a lot of times I don't really want to boast and talk about myself and, and all that kind of stuff. I've never liked that. But so the way I would address it is, let me tell you this. This is what most people tell me of why I'm different. And they say they know after 5 minutes of talking to me what's different about me. And usually that right there is intriguing enough that they want to talk to me for 5 minutes. And I can almost guarantee after 5 minutes, I have shown them enough difference about the way I operate versus the way everyone else has operated with them in the past. And it's kind of gotten me out of having to answer the question. So, and I know Gwen and Russ, and you guys have probably experienced that with me too, listening to how I work with, another customer. It doesn't matter what tank you drop me into, I'm going to swim out with flying colors.
Mm-hmm.
It's that confidence in knowing that I can help them. I can do it. I can do anything they need done, and I can figure out what it is way before they even know it. So, and I'm not, the other thing too, and I never really effectively communicated this because I thought it was kind of a boastful statement to begin with, which, I've never really been comfortable with. But the fact that I will only sell something to someone that they need. And most other people are quite to the contrary. They will sell you anything they can sell you just to make a buck. And that's probably one of the biggest differences ultimately that they discover about me is I'm not just in it to make a sale. I don't even want to make a sale. I want to help. And if what I've got can help and we can sell it, then that's great. But it's not just about, making a sale and seeing how many sales I can drum up in a day. It's more about how many people can I help in a day. That's more what it's about.
And that, John, is exactly what drew us to you so many years ago.
Yeah. A lot of people will tell me that. I know some of the people that I've worked with in the past, you've probably had a very different experience with. They shall remain nameless, but I think we all know who they are. But it's very typical, especially in the SEO business. I see so many SEO guys out there that they're really good at marketing. They are really good at traffic, and they'll get in front of masses of people and sell them something that they don't need. And it really puts a bad stain on the whole traffic business and in general. The internet marketing community as a whole has pretty much destroyed the SEO business. It wasn't Google. Everybody wants to blame it on Google. All Google is just a vehicle. They're a vehicle that delivers information. People ask questions, Google delivers answers. And, if you can use that to your benefit, great. That's a good thing for your business. But all Google's really trying to do is protect their own reputation. Their goal is to provide a good quality user experience so they can maintain an enormous customer base that they can display advertisements to. So if their quality drops, so does their readership, and their advertising dollars suffer. So they're really just nothing more than an advertising company. They sell ad space. So when people come in and try and game the system to provide less than favorable results for their own purposes, that's when Google puts up a shield. They say, no, we're going to protect our interest here. We want only quality stuff. And that's why it was absolutely brilliant on their part when they went to the RankBrain algorithm and started looking at user experience. I had predicted that back in 2010, 2011, because I always looked at Google with the goggles of, if I were Google, what would I do? how would I protect myself against all these idiots? And almost every time I knew what the internet marketing community was doing, and almost every time I was able to predict what Google was going to do to counter it. The only one I was off with was I had predicted that WordPress was going to get hit. And I strongly believed that because of what I was seeing. And Google actually found a way around it. They found a better way. And it was also one of the predictions. I just didn't think they were going to skip over WordPress and go right to it, but they did. And it was just looking at user experience. It's absolutely a brilliant move on their part. And I wish they would have done it sooner, because it would have gotten the riffraff out of our way a lot sooner and not soiled the entire industry, allowing it to go on so long. But anyway, don't even get me started on that. I could go on and on about the people involved in, in spam, and it's all spam. It's all just garbage flung to the wind to see what'll stick. And the more of that goes on, it evolves. It's like when it doesn't work in SEO anymore, then they take it to the next platform. They take it to pay-per-click. There's people that have been gaming the pay-per-click system, making that more difficult, making Google more on edge about what they'll allow. It's happening in Facebook now. It's going to happen in Instagram very soon, because that's the next emerging one. And all of this whole industry, they just move from one to the next, trying to game the system for a quick buck, never looking at the long term. So that's another difference between me, is I'm always interested in the outcome of the business and the business owner. So I'm never looking short term. I'm never looking to do some trick or tactic that is just going to give them a quick bang for the buck and then destroy them next week. And that's another thing that goes on a lot. They're just looking for the quick buck. Make the sale, show the results, don't care about what happens tomorrow. That, again, is what makes me different. I do care about tomorrow. I care very much about tomorrow, not only for me, but for every business owner that I've ever worked with. So
wouldn't you say that we want you to be successful is a good place to start when you're talking to your customer?
It is, but the thing about that is that's a promise that has been overstated and under-delivered. So it's almost like if you come out with that, you almost clump yourself into the huckster category.
How about and we prove it?
Now results in advance, that's a different story there. But that's one of the things when you're looking at your competitors and figuring out what is being told to the market, you have to be mindful of, has the market heard enough of that? And do they not trust that message anymore? So sometimes, matching the market message is not the right thing to do, but you have to understand what the market message is, what they're hearing, and anticipate what could be better than that. I like to lean back on, have you guys heard of platitudes, the word platitude? So a platitude is like if you say something that they would just naturally expect. Like you could say, we provide a 30-day money-back guarantee. And they'll say, well, so what? So does everyone else. That's kind of like a platitude. Saying I'm honest, that's a platitude. If they can say, I would expect such, I see this a lot with the service businesses. They say, you can trust us because we're a family business. You say, really? Why would I trust your family business more than the other 10 guys saying the same thing? And what does that really mean anyway? Do we not trust, someone that's not a family business? Are they not as good? So I try and stay away from the platitudes. When you're doing anything related to marketing, ask yourself these questions. If what you say, think about your customer. If you say this to your customer, could they say either, so what? Or could they say, I would expect as much? And if they can say either of those two things, you probably shouldn't have said it to begin with. Because first of all, you don't want to be putting things in your market, or in your marketing rather, that your customers are just going to say, oh yeah, so what? Why is that important to me? And that's the key thing. If you can focus on what is important to them, that's where you're going to win the game. When you're talking about things that are platitude related, you're mostly talking about yourself. And your customers don't necessarily care too much about you. You've got to really create a good relationship with your customers before they start caring about you. And if you're in that category, then you've really done well. You have done well for yourself when your customers care as much about you as you care about them. That you've achieved a level of success that most will never get to if you get to that point. But if you focus on what's important to them, regardless of your relationship with them, that's going to move the needle more than anything else. So the fact that, we're a family business, yeah, who cares? That doesn't really relate to me. That's relating to them. So, and I said that as a prospect. As a prospect, I don't care. If you tell me you're a family business, what's that mean to me? Now if you tell me what your business is going to do is going to make my family better, I'm all ears. I'm like, really? Okay, that my family is important to me. So how do we do that? That's a statement from your side that I'm going to pay attention to. So anything about your ideal prospect, anything from their timeline as far as what they want, their desired outcomes, anything from their empathy grid that is affecting their feelings on not having that potentially, or their beliefs, that stuff is going to be the stuff that really moves the needle. That's great stuff to work with. And big ideas come from that. It's when you get that kind of understanding from your analysis and your market research, that's where you can really start to percolate these great big ideas that we can transition now into creating a marketing plan around a great big idea. It's when you try and create marketing plans without having a big idea, that's where you're just kind of making mush. It might work, it might work okay, but it's never going to be a great marketing plan. It's not going to be one of the ones that changes your life for certain. So
on that, would saying something, because one of the comments I say often that catches people's attention is that, yes, we are an internet marketing company. However, we don't want to just send you traffic without being able to make sure that you can convert that traffic.
Yeah. See, that's like when they hear that, what you're saying to me as a prospect, what you're saying to me is you're not there just to take my money.
Right.
That's
so would that be considered like a big idea statement or not?
It could be. It certainly could be.
Okay.
That would be like something you want to start brainstorming on. That would be one of those things I'd throw up on the board and then throw something else up that's related to it and start the brainstorming process. Because to your prospect, if they have the belief, like let's go to the empathy grid for a second, and let's say they've tried a bunch of other people and they've spent a bunch of money and they've gotten no results. They're probably thinking this is just another person that wants to take my money and run. And if that's the case, and you make a statement like that, now all of a sudden you are different. You don't have to say why you're different. You've said it in that statement without saying this is what makes me different. They're now feeling that.
Right.
So that's going to be like you said, observation of how your prospects react to certain things when you talk to them in person is absolutely invaluable. Most people don't observe that. They just talk. And I see this all the time. They just yak and yak and yak, and there's no point to it. But like for you, when you say something and you see how they react to it, that should steer the focus of the conversation. And you can do this like a little game. Like treat every word that comes out of your mouth as an A/B test. Did it go positive or did it go negative? And then base the next word out of your mouth to use that as a base control for the next test. And I do that all the time. I've never thought of it like that, but that's a lot of what I do when I'm communicating with somebody, is I'm taking their result and not necessarily on every word, but on every string of words, every sentence, so to speak. I'm throwing out a comment and I'm looking for the reaction, and I'm able to base if that's important to them or not. I'm able to base if it's offensive to them or not. And I'm able to adjust my next thing that I'm going to throw out based on that. So when you're able to do that and actually observe it, like you just mentioned, you're obviously doing that to some point right now, based on that comment. So when you're able to do that, you're able to learn from actually talking to your market or to your prospects. When you can take that information back into your marketing, that's solid gold. And again, that is the best place to start to find those big ideas, is what's important to your market. So for me, there's been, when I think back about, I consider myself, for being an uneducated man, so to speak, I consider myself pretty freaking educated for not going to school, not going to, formal education. I have spent my entire adult life educating myself every way I can by looking at successful people and what they do and how they do it, and following that and improving upon that. I've been to a ton of different seminars. I typically, if you've ever been to a seminar with me, you'll know I sit in the back corner. I'll pick one of the back corners so I can see the entire audience and I can see the reaction to the speakers. And I'm not looking at the speaker, I'm looking at the audience. I'm listening to what they're saying. I'm seeing out of the corner of my eye what they're doing, if they're doing, crazy stuff or whatever. But I'm mostly looking at the audience. I'm seeing how they react to every word that's said. And I'm also looking at what else is going on in the room too. Because a lot of times you'll notice or maybe you haven't noticed, there's a lot of things going on in the room that are all in conjunction and choreographed to what's going on up front. And it's pretty awesome, once you open yourself up to that entire visual and see what's really going on. It's almost like you're behind the curtain and you're seeing who's pulling the strings. I walked into a Lisa Sasevich conference one day, and I noticed as soon as they opened the doors and I walked through, I'm usually early to get there so I can make sure I get that seat that I desire. So I was one of the first ones through the door, and first thing I noticed was every other seat had a box of Kleenex under it. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be good. And it was just like completely choreographed for a desired outcome to make that crowd cry. and she was really good at it. She did it. And I'm just like, I could see that at the first step through the door. I could tell what was coming, but no one else even recognized there was Kleenex boxes under the seats. They didn't even see it. They just, went in, took their seats, and experienced the show. So look for other stuff that's going on. Look for the things when you're in a situation where it's a business presentation. It's absolutely fascinating, the things that are also going on aside from what's going on the stage. So look for the pre-plans and the things they're trying to gear towards, and keep that in mind when you're doing your own stuff. You want to have going in every time you do a presentation, whether it be one-on-one or on a stage with 2 or 10,000 people, or a webinar, doesn't matter what it is. Any presentation you do, you should have the end in mind first. If you know what the end in mind is, then you can engineer the presentation. And as far as from observation, from a learning standpoint, I've learned more than you can imagine from observing people's presentations. It's how they construct them, how they lead them through, how they set you up, how they create that demand and desire. And some of the stage guys are way better. Their stage presence is way better than their marketing presence. If they could figure out how to take what they do on stage and craft that into a marketing message, they'd never have to go on stage again. They'd be making millions of dollars without ever having to go and travel and do that whole stage thing. But that's the thing. They've figured out a marketing message that's in person from the stage. They just haven't translated it into the electronic version of that yet.
So John, I'm wondering for Gwen, I'm not sure exactly what she does or how big her clientele is, but I'm just wondering on the basis of everything we've just talked about, if coming up with something like a we prove it package, so not something that just gets people in so that you can absolutely prove that you're not just saying this is what we do, but to give people the opportunity to work with them and to nurture that group as they come in and see the results. Is that something that is a possibility? Or
yeah, absolutely, because she could basically, what that would equate to is starting out on a lower level package to get them in and get them going, and she's pretty much already got that. Like, she'll get somebody started up with one thing with the mind and being in mind to transition them into other products and services and grow them. And they've got one customer now that, what are they up to, like 20,000 a month? And they're trying to figure out, or no, it's 20,000 a day.
Yeah, he was running 20,000 a day gross.
Yeah, so they're at 20, and they're going to try and figure out how to move that up, because that's about 600,000 a month. They want to move it up to $1 million a month. So, in her category, that's what she'll do. And she started them off with a small package, proved what she could do, and then she kept advancing them and moving them up and up and up. So,
and the funny story with that is their bookkeeper, who didn't see all the results, just saw the lump sums coming in, is like, the percentage of increase that we're paying you is enormous over the last year. And I'm like, yes, but look at your income. And I had to break it out for her because she was looking at percentage spending.
Yeah.
And I had to break out to her of how much that spending was actually bringing them back. And I haven't heard anything back from her. And I've called and followed up and left messages, and that the owner is thrilled, and he's totally on board for that $1 million a month.
Well, what an awesome testimonial, right?
Yeah, and that's it. The whole testimonial thing. When you've got your clients in that euphoria, that is the absolute best time to get a video testimonial out of them, because that really is like proof in the marketing. And I know testimonials these days are kind of touchy because of the FTC. So having them state actual numbers sometimes is not really the best way to do it. But if they can make a statement of something like, before we started, we were here, we were struggling, we were barely making payroll. And then, after 6 months of the process, now we're looking at expanding and doubling our marketing budget, because the outcome of what we did and what we experienced is so good, we want more of it. That kind of testimonial you have no problems with. And the problems is, when they start coming in, and it's the same thing with you, Mary Sue. You have to be careful with what people say about you and what you can actually post and publish.
Yep.
It's the same thing with business and numbers as well. It's really kind of sticky all the way across the board. So it's like that. You want them to describe the transformation of where they were and how they felt, and where they are now and how they feel now.
Sure. Another thing, it seems to me like if all you're trying to do is sell them the introductory package and you're comfortable with that, that shows in your testimonials, and I think it keeps you out of problems with the FTC in a way that just says, come and let us show you. Right. And even the FTC can't argue with that, can they? If they're, if you're not.
The only thing they're really concerned with is claims that would sway someone's decision making that are unjust.
Sure.
So that's what they're concerned with. Like, and an example of that is, let's say you've got 500 customers and 1 out of 500 experience phenomenal results. And you portray that as, this is the common customer experience, when it was really only 1 out of 500. That's what they're really against. So the other thing too, while we're on testimonials, I don't remember if it was on the Apprentice call last week or if it was on the Dominator call, but somebody asked me how to get the best testimonials. And was it on this call?
Me. It was the phone call. It was the Dominator call.
Yeah, so I just want to throw that out here on the Apprentice call too, is one of the best ways to get a video testimonial is if they don't know they're being recorded. And I know that sounds a little sneaky, but there's hats now with a GoPro camera in the hat. There's little cameras that you can put on your lapel or on a pin or whatever. And basically what you're doing, you're not doing it without their consent. You're just getting their consent after the fact. And basically what you would do is you would have the recorder going, and you go up and you ask them, you go, do you mind doing a video testimonial for me at some point here? And if they say yes, absolutely, you can just start the conversation with them, and you can kind of lead them of, I'm sure you could think about, what you might say, and then just let them go. Just let them rattle it off, because that's when they do it. It's when you pull the camera out and you say, okay, can you say that for the camera? They freeze and they freak out. No matter what they say, oh yeah, I can do that, no problem. They will always freeze up when the camera shows up. So if you're just doing it as a conversation, maybe you ask them, say, what would you say if I were to interview you? What kind of feedback would you give me for where you felt before you experienced the product or the service, and then where you are now and how that feels, and just let them spew. And then at the end, they're either going to say, well, they may not say this, but they might say, when would you like to do the testimonial? And you can say, it's already done. Thank you. I've got the camera on here. It's perfect. What you said was awesome. if you're okay with me using that, we're done. And they will be very relieved, because everyone dreads getting in front of the camera. They want to do it for you. You know, their intentions are good, but as soon as that camera comes out, it just freaks people out. I don't know why, but it does. Even me. I mean, I'm very used to being on camera at this point, and even me, it will come out different if I'm doing it in front of a camera as a testimonial than if we were just conversing about it. So it's one of the best ways I know to get really, really believable testimonials. And Chris, you know, he's in the group here, Chris McLean, he's a video guy. And one of the things that he'll do is he will stand beside the camera. The camera can be actually running. He will actually stand beside the camera and just be talking to the person and asking them questions. And then every once in a while he'll switch sides of the camera, so they'll turn to him, but they're talking to him. They're not looking right in the camera, but they're just saying what they really mean. And you know, after that conversation has taken place, they don't realize they're done, but they're so relieved that they are, and it's over. So anyway, good stuff. Anything else you guys can think of before we wrap up for today?
Oh, wait, Sam's here. Yeah, when you pull out, Sam will help me pull the TV.
Okay. I've got to run, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys for being on here, and Mary Sue, I'll probably see you tomorrow.
Yeah, are you going to be at the Marriott?
I'm going to be here in Huntington Beach.
Oh, how are we going to work?
Are you? Let's see. Yeah, I'm not actually going to that event.
Oh my goodness, I thought you were.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I've actually been through it before.
Well, yeah, I know that. So, geez, we need to figure out how to